Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews, it's your number one source. Sports Card Nation, the hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
Welcome to episode 140. Glad to be back, as always. One programming note, if you're listening to this show on show release date, Friday the 13th, the debut of our once-a-month live show will be tonight. It's called Breaking Cardboard. It will be the second Friday of every month. It'll be live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. And again, second Friday of each month, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And it'll be myself, a co-host, which tonight will be Yamwax, and a special guest, which tonight will be Dr. James Beckett. So it will be myself, Yamwax, and Dr. James Beckett for an hour. You can come in the chat room, watch the show, comment. I will put some of the comments on the screen and respond to them. No call-ins, but interactive just the same. Again, once a month, second Friday. Tonight, Friday the 13th, August, is our debut episode. It will be also on YouTube after the fact. And if you just want to hear the audio, we will actually be releasing the audio on this platform. So this episode Friday, and if you just want to catch the audio of the Breaking Cardboard episode, that will be uploaded on Saturday morning. So hope I see a few familiar faces and even some unfamiliar ones in that chat room. Follow us on Facebook or YouTube, Sports Card Nation Podcast, and you'll be notified when we go live, which is 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Got a great show for you here on Sports Card Nation today. Brandon Verzal from The Card Life, the new show that revolves around the hobby, hosted by Matt Strom, the San Diego Padres pitcher. We're going to talk about his long career in content creation, how the Card Life got off the ground, where it came from, and where they're going with it. And, you know, Brandon's hobby likes just the same. So, great guest. We've got a lot of interesting topics, and stay tuned for that interview coming up shortly here. Going to step aside for a quick break, but after the break, our hobby release schedule for the week, and our guest announcer is back. And this week, it's Dan McCary, Cardman Dan, who does a great job. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back.
Iron Sports Cards is your number one source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
How you doing, Sports Card Nation? This is Cardman Dan, and here's this week's release schedule. On August 13th, you have 2021 Panini WNBA Prizm Basketball. You also have Panini Immaculate Collegiate Football, Panini Prizm Baseball, Topps Pro Debut Baseball, Hobby and Jumbo. And on August 18th, you have 2021 Panini Elements Football. You have 2021 Bowman Sterling Baseball, and Topps UEFA Stadium Club Chrome Soccer. You also have 2021 Upper Deck Skybox Metal Universe Hockey, 2021 Upper Deck Allure Hockey, Panini National Treasures Collegiate Football, and then on the 20th, you have Panini Immaculate Baseball 2021, Panini Spectra Basketball, and then 2021 Topps Chrome Baseball, Hobby and Jumbo to wrap it up.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoy the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
It's time for the Hobby What's Up, where we go around the hobby world and tell you all the latest news and breaking stories from the hobby we love.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Golden Auctions sold another whopper, and it's a card that I believe still one of the most iconic cards, but most undervalued cards in the hobby today. They sold a PSA 10 version. It's the 1980 Bird Magic Scoring Leaders Rookie. 2 icons on one card. The PSA 10 went for a final bid price of $861,000. I bought this card in Chicago at the National a couple weeks ago. Not the PSA 10 version, but the PSA 5 version. And again, it's one of those cards where you're going to get 2 iconic legends of a sport on the same card as rookies. Pretty rare that happens. I mean, the only one that really sort of pops in my mind is the LeBron Carmelo. LeBron Wade out of the Matrix, but you know, this is Larry Bird, Larry Legend, and Magic Johnson, and on the same card, and it's rookies. I think it speaks for itself. Like I said, I bought one a couple weeks ago, a 5, and this one brought under $1 million at $861K, and to me, a gem mint 10 of that iconic card. To me, when we see all these other cards go for millions of dollars, that won't be long at that level. That thing will hit 7 figures pretty soon. I'm surprised it didn't do that already.
A great success.
41st National was a great success. Many thought and suspected it would beat the attendance record of the 1991 Anaheim edition.
Not so fast, my friend.
However, the powers that be have announced it is going to be considered the second best attended national in the history of the event. However, day one was a record setter, and 47% of the folks buying tickets to the event, this number really shocked me. I knew it would be high, but I did not know it was going to be this high. 47% of tickets sold were the folks going to their first ever national. Think about that. Almost half of every person you saw, if you attended, that was their first national. And that really says a lot about where the hobby is at this moment.
Hey now.
Not everything at the national is good. The FBI, once again, made its presence known. This is pertaining to the Henkel case, a master forger when it comes to autographs and memorabilia. Word is they interviewed some folks and confiscated some items in relation to that case. And, you know, I think we're going to see some of that at probably every national. I think as we see these values of these cards and memorabilia rise to the levels they are, these are federal crimes when forgery or wrongdoing is committed. And so I think that, you know, I think just like we book our itinerary every year as collectors and hobbyists for the national, I think there's going to be an outlet of the FBI that books their arrangements for the national wherever it's being held as well. And I think that's just the territory and the nature of the beast we're in. Staying on topic with the National, the one-of-one logo man, RPA, Justin Herbert, was pulled during the break during the National, and the owner of the card that received it during the break sold the card through a private sale for an estimated $550,000. Not a bad National pull if you can do it.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Well, if you bought Mud SPAC like I did, the initial offering from Topps to go public, I traded my Ford stock in and turned it into that Mud SPAC, that precursor to Topps stock. Well, on August 25th, if you're like me, we're all going to get to vote for that to go public and change over to Topps, and it won't be under the Mud's umbrella. It's going to be Topps. The symbol will actually be TOP, TOPP, on Wall Street, TOPP, no S. So if you're a shareholder like I am, on the August 25th, you're going to get to vote. It's expected to pass breezingly, and then we will be official owners of the Topps company as they transition fully to public. Staying on the Topps subject, wanted to speak about a recent on-demand product that I purchased from them. Their Major League Baseball 2021 3D offering. I got a couple boxes. I've opened one. I'm keeping it closed. Fairly low print run considering it's a 100-card set. Some of the singles are doing decently on the secondary market. So if you run across any of those on the cheap, my advice might be to go ahead and grab them, because I think the print run for all the variables in the set is fairly low. It's an on-demand product. You're not going to see it on retail shelves or even in hobby stores. And they remind me, this is not the first year they've done them. They did them last year, but they remind me of the old sport flicks, but a little higher quality. Some people don't like them. Think they're kind of odd, but I think they're kind of different and neat, and I think some of the stars and rookies are going to command a few bucks on the secondary market. So if you run into a pocket or something of them cheap, not a bad buy to maybe purchase and put away. I know I'm kind of going to be looking for singles. I'm not putting a set together per se, but I'm going to try to grab some singles on the secondary market.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mats, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for investing in the hobby. Just download the app and sign up with the referral code SCN to get your first share free. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Answer my question! The question!
I'll answer the question. You want answers?
All right, we haven't done the question and answer Newman's Ramblings segment in probably about 5-6 weeks, just kind of with live shows and the National. And this is a question that I get asked by more than one person. It's been asked before. And I may have even answered it in this segment in a very early episode, but I thought it would be good to run it again or answer it again for those that wonder about it. And like I said, I get asked every so often, why is there no cursing or you don't use foul language on the show? Well, it's an easy question for me. I'm not going to stand in front of the mic right here and tell you that I've never swore in my life, but I will tell you that we're not going to do it on this show. I know a lot of young folks listen to the show, and I try to set a good example, a positive example. And so we're not going to use foul language. I know some will say, well, they're hearing it somewhere else. What difference does it make, right? Well, to me, it makes a difference. I've gotten emails from fathers who have told me they listen to the show in the car with their children on the way to a card show or school, and they both enjoy the show, and they've thanked me for keeping it clean where some other podcasts not as clean. So to each their own. I'm not just trying to say I'm better because I don't swear and someone else does. I just choose not to because someone who believes in kids in the hobby and that platform would be sort of hypocritical to advocate for that but yet swear on the show. So that is the number one reason. I will tell you this: the older I get, the less I use bad language. I don't know why that is, but just seems that way. I'm maybe mellowing out in my old age, but we try to keep this a family-friendly show, and that's why we don't swear. So I hope people appreciate that. I know I've gotten feedback from many who do, and we're going to remain that way as well. But just thought I'd kind of let everyone know why that is the case.
Sports Card Nation! It's now time to chop it up with our featured guest on the one-of-one card shop guest line. Let's go!
All right, joining me now on the Sports Card Nation guest line, he's the producer and editor of a brand new hobby-only show. Very cool, The Card Life. He's like I said, he produces and edits the show, kind of does almost everything as we talked before he came on. Brandon Verzal, well, welcome to the show.
John, thanks so much for having me. I, listened to Sports Card Nation for since 2019. So big fan of the show, and it's my honor to be on with you.
All right. The check is in the mail, as they say. I appreciate that. Now, you're not new to content creation. While the show is new, I looked at your bio. You've done a lot. It's easier for you to kind of to speak to everything you've done. So kind of, I hate to do it to you, but give that resume out of all the great organizations and teams that you've worked with.
Yeah, I grew up I was obsessed with sports video. Like I loved playing sports, but I was the person that would record everything on TV and then go back and watch the intro video for the NBA finals and figure out how they edited it and how they shot it and everything. So it was always an obsession for me growing up. And then when I was in college at the University of Nebraska, they had opportunities for students to work at Husker Vision, which is the department within the athletic department that produces all the video content, especially at that time was for the in-stadium and for the TV shows. So while I was a student in the 90s, I got to work at Husker Vision for the University of Nebraska. It was during the Tom Osborne era. So it was during the national championship runs. It was an incredible time to be there. I knew I wanted to work in baseball. Baseball has always been my passion. And so when I was a junior in college, I interned with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in their inaugural season. Wade Boggs, Fred McGriff, great fun team that first year, just to see if I liked baseball. It's a grind. It's 81 home games. You're there from 7 a.m. till midnight, 14 days in a row when there's a homestand. But I still loved every part of it, knew I wanted to work in baseball. Had the opportunity when I graduated from college. I got hired by the Kansas City Royals to be their video producer and run their production department. Was there for a couple years, got hired by the Seattle Mariners, worked for the Mariners for a couple years, and then the athletic director that was at Nebraska went to Texas A&M University, called myself and my wife, who has the same background I do. She was a Husker Vision student as well. Said, we don't have a video department here at A&M. Will you come down and run it? And so we moved from Seattle to College Station, Texas. We were there for about 5 years and then moved back home to Nebraska. And we own our own company. We've been doing that for 13 years, produce TV shows. We produce in-stadium content for teams all over the country. And it's fun. I mean, it's sports. It doesn't feel like a job when you're doing sports anyways. And we still get to be involved in sports. And now the hobby gets to be part of this as well, which I never would have dreamed could happen, but it has. And it's just such a great opportunity. And I love every minute of it.
And so the moral of that story is you're a grizzled veteran of videography, content creation. Speak to like working for some pro teams in baseball, and do you get a lot of memorabilia because of what you do? Is it sort of frowned upon? How does that even play into it at all?
It's so funny because I think I was less interested in the hobby when I was working for those teams, because when you're part of that grind every day and you're filming with these players and stuff, it loses that luster. When you're around them all the time, it loses the luster. So I just didn't think of it at the time. There's things I grabbed that are really cool that are part of my memorabilia collection that I'll cherish, and I wouldn't have had an opportunity to get if I wouldn't have done that. One of the coolest things I have hanging on my wall is I was working for the Royals when Cal Ripken was doing his retirement tour. They knew he was retiring at the end of the season. And every stadium he went to, the team would edit a tribute video, and they'd play it before the last game of the homestand and present him with something, kind of what they do for all players that are retiring. And so I produced the Cal Ripken video in Kansas City. And after the game, he pulled our marketing person aside and said, hey, I've seen 12 of these now. It was late in the season, and said, this is the best one I've seen. Will you give this to the guy who made the video? And she came and gave it to me. So I have that hanging on my wall from the last Cal Ripken game at Kauffman Stadium. And that was probably one of the biggest honors of my career, is hearing Ripken say something that was a retrospective of his career was one of the best he'd seen. So that was pretty neat. And when I was in Seattle, Ichiro was there, and anything I could ever collect related to Ichiro. He's just one of the coolest athletes of all time, and somebody so dedicated to their craft. And so I have a lot of Ichiro stuff around as well. And then, it took me starting my own company. I was back here for about 3 years, and that's when I decided to start collecting cards again and collecting memorabilia again, because I was away from it enough that it was kind of cool to do it again, I guess.
Yeah, what a compliment from Cal Ripken to say, hey, you won. This is not a competition necessarily, but if it was, you won this thing. And I'm sure the other, I don't know if the other people who did the same thing you did, probably a little jealous there if they knew that. And if they're listening, they know now. So, but yeah, that's great. And so when you got back into sort of, I'm assuming you collected as a younger kid, teenager, and then you kind of like the traditional story, college girls, you kind of get out of it. And then you mentioned getting back in. Would that be true for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a junk wax kid, but my dad's cards, my grandma never threw his cards away. So I inherited a great collection, nothing in great shape, but just fun cards to have. 62 postcards that he used to cut off of cereal boxes. And it's the Mantles and the Aarons and the Mays. And like I said, they're not in great shape. They're not worth thousands of dollars, but they're the most important cards in my collection. And so I was a junk wax kid, kept my cards. And then about 2010, I think it was when Topps did the cards your mom threw out promotion. I thought that was cool that you could get those cards through the mail that you might get randomly in a pack. And so I started grabbing a pack every time I went to Target or to Walmart. And then the next thing you know, like everybody I talk to that's related to this, the next thing you know, you're going to the local card shop, and then you're ordering stuff online. And now probably 13 years later, I'm all in on the hobby. To say the least.
One of us.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're indoctrinated in. Which is great as well. That's those stories, and like you said, sometimes the stories behind the cards rather than the values. I appreciate when someone talks about that. The 61 postcards because they were your dad's and what it means, sentimental value rather than the dollar value. To me, in many cases, in most cases, is actually more. It's worth more. What those cards mean and symbolize rather than just a dollar sign, which is great too, if that's all what you care about. Mm-hmm. But those connections to family members, why you're in it, how you kind of came back. I think those speak more value than dollar value. So you're talk about the card life, where the idea. How did this all come about? Like kind of start from the ground up.
I'd say probably for 2 or 3 years, I at least had the idea in my head that it was kind of the missing part of sports coverage. Like the gambling shows were starting to appear more on TV just regularly. The fantasy sports shows were starting to appear more regularly. And then, of course, the live sports. But this component of sports cards is such a big part of people's lives when they're little, and there were so many people coming back to it. I thought, there's never been a TV show just dedicated to the hobby. But the problem I had is we'd been producing shows for 5 years for Fox Sports networks. So we'd give the show to Fox Sports, and then they distribute it to all of their networks all over the country. And but I knew that if I went to those higher ups, that they were going to say how are you going to do a show about cardboard with players' pictures on it? You can't do that. Well, in February this year, all of a sudden the Wall Street Journal was writing articles about the hobby. ESPN's doing stories. HBO Real Sports is doing stories. And I thought, hey, here's my chance. So I emailed the higher ups and said, hey, let's do a sports card show. I can do a show a month. And they replied within like 2 minutes, said, yes, let's do it. I messaged Matt Strom, the Padres pitcher, on Twitter, said, hey, would you be interested in hosting a show about sports cards? He said, absolutely. Talk to my agent. Let's get it done. And then 3 months later, we were filming in Arizona. And now once a month, I meet Matt wherever he's at, and we film a show from that city and release one show every month. And I was hoping that it would air like 100 times a month on all the regional networks across the country. And the first month it aired about 120 times, and we're up to like 250 airings a month right now, which is just incredible for the hobby. And the number of times that I'm getting messages from people that, the Padres game just ended and they're showing the card life right afterward. They're showing the card life before the Royals game tonight. They're showing it after the Tigers game. And so all these people are getting exposed to the hobby. They were just watching the game and they left the game on when it got over. And all of a sudden there's a show about sports cards. And, I think that the hobby can be that fourth head. There can be fantasy sports, there can be gambling, there can be live sports, and the sports card hobby can be that fourth thing. And the only way we can do that is by having it just mainstream on television. And 250 times a month across the country, I calculated the metrics, and we're at around 4 million viewers. If you just roughly calculate how many, with that many number of airings and how many viewers per episode, that's a lot of people that we hope will go back, pull out their collections, and do what we've done and go back to the hobby. I mean, it could be huge for the hobby in the long run.
Yeah, that's amazing and happened quick, like you said. I mean, you're only really a couple months into this thing. Talking about it playing before and after games. You know what it reminded me? I know you're younger than me, but I'm pretty sure you probably remember with Mel Allen, This Week in Baseball. When they used to run that before games and at stadiums and on TV as well. Sort of, that show I don't believe's on anymore. If it is, I haven't seen it, quite frankly. So it's sort of the modern day equivalent of that, but with sports cards being sort of the focal point, obviously. And you make a great point. I mean, the reason I'm in cards, Brandon, is as a 7-year-old sports fan. When I found out there were baseball cards, I wanted them, right? I was a sports fan first. Now, I think some of the stories with today's, kids might have a little different connotation to it, not across the board. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I think a good percentage of people get into sports cards because they're sports fans first. There's always the exception to the rule. And so I think that connection's always going to be there. So I think that's a great point that you make, that there's room for this along with everything else you mentioned. And like you said, it's become mainstream media. You know that as well as I do. It's on financial channels. It's on regular network news. The news here locally came here, Brandon, and interviewed me about the boom and how did this happen and why it's happening and that sort of thing. And so it's really, it used to be, you probably remember, you used to almost sort of be a little timid to say, yeah, I collect baseball cards. You were sort of worried about a little bit of how that would be viewed. And now it's become, you're seeing athletes do it. You're seeing celebrities do it. And it's become a really cool space to be in. It's almost not cool if you don't do it now. And so this whole thing has changed. It's become more mainstream. I'm an old codger that actually likes that. There are some old curmudgeons that aren't as welcoming, but to each their own. I think, for the hobby to be successful, we need new, I don't want to say new blood, but new people coming in. I'm getting older, life works where we're not here forever. And so we need that next generation to take the baton and keep running it forward and running that race. So I'm one of the old guys that welcome the new folks, and there's no pension plan. I'm not getting anything for my 30 years in it other than the enjoyment that comes with being in the hobby. And, that's my take on it. Going to step aside for a quick break to hear from one of our great sponsors, Rex, Max, and Owen in Michigan with their store, the Sports Card Shop at Moco, doing great things for the hobby community, racks for kids that they just did a national. Great family, great shop. Let's hear from them, and we'll be back with Brandon right after that.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with the global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
Sports Card Nation is back with Brandon from the Card Life. Going to Matt Strom, he's the host of the show. Did you have any prior relationship with him? How did that,
No, none at all. I just knew that he collected. He was a current player that collected. There's guys like Phil Hughes and Pat Neshek that collected, but they're retired now, and so they're more involved with it. But I really wanted someone who's playing currently, and so he stood out glaringly. And the interesting thing, like what you just talked about the new blood, is I didn't know what Matt's approach to collecting was. So when I kind of sent him the synopsis of the show, I kind of had both angles of, we're going to talk about the hobby, but we can also talk about, who you're currently investing in and stuff like that. And I don't do that. I've never sold a single one of my cards, believe it or not. And Matt's the same way. He's never sold a single card. And he said, I don't want to talk about buy this guy, hold him for the next 60 days, and then sell him for a 30% profit. That's fine. That's a part of the hobby, and that's great. But he was like, I don't want that to be part of the show. I just want it to be about the collecting and love of the hobby. And so, I threw out even, that idea of even giving him that idea. And that's what the show is just about. It's about passion for the hobby, people involved in the hobby. I mean, we're interviewing the photographers, we're interviewing the card artists, we're interviewing the kids that are doing content creation around sports cards. We're interviewing the athletes. You mentioned about the athletes getting into it. I drove up to Green Bay and filmed Packers running back A.J. Dillon in his house breaking cards on loop. I mean, who would have thought when we were kids that you'd be able to go onto an app, listen to a professional athlete selling cards live online, and then if he pulls his card, you can pick the color of pen and he'll sign it and send it to you. I mean, that's just it's a whole nother generation. So, that new blood, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're turning to that investing side. It can just be that there's some really cool ways to collect now that didn't exist for us before. And I think, seeing Matt Strom order Topps Now cards with his 4 teammates on it and then go into the clubhouse and get them all to sign the card and say that that's one of the best cards in his collection. That's awesome. That's an athlete saying how cool this is. And then, you don't have to feel like somebody at a party asks what you do for a hobby and you're like, I collect sports cards. Now you can be proud of it because these people are so passionate and proud of it too. And that's one of the great things I think about where we're heading. And I have so much respect for the past, as you'll see a lot of the segments that we do on the show are a lot about the past, because I have so much interest in that. But where the hobby's headed is just so exciting right now. There's just such an intersection of new things coming out that are going to make it interesting to the younger kids because it's more their style. But then, like you said, us old curmudgeons can still enjoy our traditional way of collecting and enjoying the hobby as well.
Yeah, and I've watched both the episodes, and I got to say, what I like what you're doing too, Brandon, is, sure, you got the athlete side. We're all part of the hobby, whoever partakes in it. But you're also showing, regular collectors as well. You had a friend of mine, Bo Thompson, on 1 Million Cubs. You've had Ryan Hack, with his one arm, talking about what he does and how he outreaches folks and kids and makes a difference. I love that you encompass everything. It's not just about the folks that are up here or the athletes only. The hobby's everybody, right? The hobby's the people is the tagline of this show.
Yeah.
And I think you do a great job with the Card Life illustrating that. And, kudos to you and your crew and everyone involved in the show for doing that. A lot of time you see these shows where they stay at that upper echelon kind of only. And someone who's not in that atmosphere, it might turn them, it might say, hey, they're not showing anyone that's really where I am. And, we're going to have a show coming out. I won't mention the name, but people can put two and two together. That's going to show that high-end aspect. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said, there's different ways. But I think I like to see everything. I like to see all the angles, all the different people, from athletes to collectors in Sheboygan or wherever here in Syracuse. I think that's what the hobby is. It's all of us. It's not just one tier or one level. We are all together. Without everybody, this hobby wouldn't be thriving and successful as it is. And again, you do a really good job illustrating that. Talk about it. Is it difficult with Matt? With Matt being an active player, is it difficult to do the show around his schedule? How is the team, acquiesce? Is there any difficulties navigating that at all?
So it's been a little different than what our plan was, because Matt had knee surgery last fall right after the season got over. So he was at extended spring training in Arizona until mid-June. And so the original plan for the show was, I'd look at the list of cities that they were playing at on the road that month, and I'd pick one of those cities, meet them there. We'd film for a day in that city, and then I'd spend another day kind of gathering the other stories. But he was just in Arizona for all that time. So we did an Arizona show the first time. The second show was Wisconsin. Matt was never in Wisconsin because he went to San Diego to get back with the team as part of that rehab process. So I just drove up to Wisconsin, filmed the episodes, and then I flew to San Diego and filmed with him there. But now we're kind of set now. We're going to meet in Denver next week. We're going to meet in St. Louis the month after that. Hopefully they're in the playoffs. We'll be doing a playoff episode in October. And the great thing is he's from Fargo, North Dakota. It'd be an awesome place, an unusual place to do a show during the off season. He has land in Kansas, so we'll do a show down there. If they go on a family vacation, I'm sure we'll meet him there as well. So yeah, Matt is so awesome to deal with. I mean, he is just the most down-to-earth guy you could ever imagine. Loves the hobby. He's like a kid in a candy store. When he walks in, I never tell him what he's ripping, because we do one segment where he rips boxes and packs, and I never tell him what I'm going to show up with. And the look on his face when I'm like, oh, we're hunting a Connor McDavid rookie in this pack, and we're going to hunt a Kobe rookie in this box, and it just makes his day. And we're hoping eventually we can break with teammates and like opponents when we're in cities playing that, but because of COVID stuff right now, he's still having to wear a mask whenever we're shooting indoors, and I'm the only one that's with him when we're filming. That was the other thing that I don't think the show would have got done with a traditional camera crew where you had 4 people on set. The part of the sell to Major League Baseball of us being able to do the show was I'm the only one there with Matt, besides if we have one guest, and if we do, everybody's masked. So once things get back to normal, whenever normal occurs again, I think we'll be able to do more of that, and Matt can bring a teammate out and we can do stuff, and even film in the ballpark. We can't really film in the ballpark now just because they don't want extra media people around just because of COVID. So it'll change as the year goes on, but I mean, he's just the most easygoing guy and just someone who just loves the hobby, loves collecting.
Going to step aside for another quick break to hear from a great sponsor, 101 Car Shop, but we'll be right back.
What doesn't 101 Car Shop do? From box, case, and personal brakes, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at 1of1 Card Shop or on the web at 1of1cardshop.com.
We are back with Brandon Verzal. So where you shoot is really sort of dictated kind of on where he's going to be necessary. Although you did mention, the Wisconsin episode, you filmed them yourself and then caught up with him in San Diego. But generally speaking, is it kind of where his schedule takes him?
Yeah, I think generally what we'll do is we'll pick out, one of the road cities that he's going to be in, and thinking as we get a couple years into this, go into cities that we haven't been to yet. And we'll always do some San Diego shows every year just because with him playing there more than any place else. But the idea being that we just want to show different areas of the country and tell those stories from all those different areas. I mean, Wisconsin episode was awesome. I arranged it where I was going to go film at AJ Dillon's house when he was going to break on a Friday night. And I thought, wow, I'm driving up there. Maybe I can find some other stories on the way. And both Bo with the 1 Million Cubs Project and Ryan Hack with Ripken One Handed, they're both in Verona, Wisconsin, like 7 miles apart from each other. Yeah. And that was on my way from Lincoln, Nebraska to Green Bay. So I just stopped and filmed those stories when I was on my way up there. We were up in Minnesota. My daughter had a surgery up in Minnesota, and I was able to interview Father John Ubel, who was the priest who auctioned off his card collection to raise money for disadvantaged kids. And I was able to film with a photographer up there as well, who's been on thousands of sports cards, and those will be future stories as well. The amazing thing, and I'm sure you know this off of being in the hobby for 30 years, is everywhere you go, there's some cool story about the hobby. Yep. If you just take time to look for it, there's some really, really cool stories out there and great personalities that are just an essential part of the hobby or were part of it 20 or 30 years ago that have never told their story. I just got back from Oakland, and I filmed with Terry Smith. He's the artist that created the Provision cards for Fleer in the early 90s, the Dwight Gooden with the flaming baseball and the Mark McGuire in front of the American flag. And here's a guy who created that set, was active in the card hobby for 2 or 3 years, and then he didn't really do art for 25 years. He was doing video games and stuff. I got to go to his studio last week and see those original paintings from Provision and talk to him about, that whole process of he sent a Dwight Gooden card in and it sent in a drawer in Fleer for 2 years before they agreed to do that card set. And that's going to be a story on our next show in Oakland that's coming out. And I mean, there's just so many fantastic stories out there, John, as you know, and you just have to hunt a little bit and you're going to find something almost no matter where you're at.
Yeah, and I got to imagine, that hunt that you mentioned, it's got to be that's fun for you as well, finding those, sort of like we talk about diamonds in the rough with finding cards, right? In a big box of cards, it's finding those stories, right? In whatever city, it doesn't always have to be the biggest city or the most known cities. And it's you're talking about Terry Smith, those Provisions were huge back then. And we see what the card art part of the hobby's doing now, and that and the Perez Steel Diamond Kings in the 80s and 90s was sort of what we're dealing with now back then, obviously on a different sort of level, but and so it's great to go back. What we've had in the past in the hobby's been the bridge to what we see now. We to not forget that and revisit it and highlight it again. I think that's important because there's a lot of people in this hobby, Brandon, as you know, that had no idea about that until maybe they watched that on the Card Life and like, oh, I've seen those cards. I had no idea this is the gentleman who was the brains behind that. Or, you know, hey, I didn't even know about those cards. Now I found out I'm going to try to get a box of 91 Fleer and crack it open and pull some of those. And so that kind of thing is so important, even to newer people in the hobby who care about the history of the hobby and you know, not forget it and bring it back. I'm, you know, being an older guy, I love that side of things as well, because we wouldn't have what we have today without, you know, maybe some of the new people wouldn't say that necessarily, but I will. That stuff that's happened before has laid the groundwork for what we see today. Even though technologies are better, maybe there's more people by population in the hobby. What's happened before is still so important to what we see today.
Yeah, Terry, you know, he pointed out that those Provision cards, they were the first chase cards. They were the first cards that you didn't know if you were going to get them in a pack or a box or not. And so that's, you know, what is normal now was the first version of that. He also was part of the Fleer Ultra set, which was the first cards in like 92 or 93 that actually used computers to put the graphics on the back. And so just think about things that are mainstream now. And then the early 90s, what computers were. And he was part of that group that introduced, hey, we can use computers to design cards, which people thought he was crazy when he was doing that in the early 90s. And to just to hear that, and same thing like you said with the card artists of what he did compared to what's happening now with Project 2020 and Project 70. It's just great to see where the roots of that were and how it has grown into what it is today.
Yeah, it's important. I'm a past guy, you know, whether it's cards or history or family, everything is the fabric of where we are today. And I hate, you know, when we don't remember it or we don't talk about it or we let it sort of fall by the wayside. And again, kudos for you for not doing that and highlighting those sort of things. So, you know, I'm going to politic. I'm here. I'm originally from New York City, but I'm here in Syracuse. So I'm going to politic for a Syracuse stop of the Card Life. You know, shameless plug there. But you know, can you talk about what I think you mentioned Oakland? Any other episodes you can? I don't know if it's top secret or you can kind of
no, not at all. No, Oakland comes out next week, and you know Terry Smith is one of our main guests, and then Brad Balukjian. I don't know if you ever had him on from the Wax Pack book. He was a fantastic interview. I'm driving out to Denver next week to meet Matt and have some great stories lined up out there. St. Louis after that, and then like I said, we'll see what happens with the playoffs. I'd love to do. Hopefully, it's a Padres-Dodgers series that I can go do some games there, and then in the off season. The great thing is that most TV shows, they're producing stuff or shooting stuff that then is going to air 6 months later. Most of the time, we're filming 3 or 4 weeks out. This Oakland show that I'm about to release in 48 hours, I just filmed less than 10 days ago. And so it's current. It's not, we don't have to worry about if stuff's going to be outdated by the time that we get around to editing it. So, you know, we have Oakland, Denver, and St. Louis, and then it's TBD after that. And I'd love to come to Syracuse. You know, the Orange were my team. Believe it or not, growing up in Nebraska, like watching Ronnie Cycli on Saturdays, watching Syracuse was kind of my thing. So yeah, I can make Syracuse part of a trip. I don't know if I get Matt to come out there with me, but that might be one of those that might be one of the cities I visit, and then I'll film him in like Miami, and he'll just say that it's a Syracuse episode.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. I'll roll out the red carpet.
Awesome.
We'll go to lunch at a famous local place. It's called the Dinosaur Barbecue. We'll hit all the famous spots that we have. Maybe talk some cards. You have an open invitation as far as I'm concerned. If Matt comes, I'd love it. But if it's just you, that's great. That's great as well.
He's a Fargo guy, so the winter's not going to bother him. So maybe I can get him out there. It's not like he plays for the Padres, but he's not a San Diego guy. I'm not going to get a San Diego guy to come to Syracuse in December, but a Fargo guy is probably no big deal.
Yeah, you were probably young at the time, if you were even born. I'm not sure how. There's a Syracuse, Nebraska sort of story in college football.
Oh yeah.
I believe they were Nebraska was number one at the time. I believe Syracuse was unranked, and they upset. That definitely story gets told here every so often, and especially on some lean years, which were sort of in with Syracuse football. A lot of people like to kind of reminisce about the glory moments and glory days, and hearing the Nebraska connection and saying about you being a Syracuse fan. I kind of thought of that. Maybe not that day anyway. So
yeah, football's a little different. Nebraska basketball doesn't have anything on Syracuse basketball. I actually was just at something yesterday with Coach Osborne, and I think there's some crazy statistic that he only lost to like 2 unranked teams his entire career at Nebraska, and I think that Syracuse was one, and an Iowa State game was about it. I mean, he had incredible success, and
he's a legend, and the fact that you know him and got to work with him, that's a story in itself, and that's awesome too. Another quick aside here from a great sponsor, Pastime Marketplace. They make some of the best graded card cases on the market today.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Sports Card Nation is back with Brandon from the Card Life. Going back to your hobby, what do you collect now that you're back in the cards? And has the show, before you answer that, has the show changed how you collect at all, or you kind of know what you like, you know who you want to get? Kind of speak to that.
Yeah, let me see. Collecting wise, Ichiro, like I said, just because of the Seattle connection. I've always been a Twins fan. I just happened to go to a Twins game when I was 6 years old, and they were terrible, but they won, so I thought they were the greatest team ever. And so Joe Mauer is one of my other guys that I regularly collect. I collect Trout just because I figure if you're going through an era where it might be the best player of all time, you should probably collect, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that wish they would have done that with Mantle in the 50s, and they would have been a lot better off long term. So those are kind of my PC guys. I would say more of the show hasn't changed that, but I will say some of my collecting's impacted the show. Our first episode that was from Arizona, we went through those 1990 Topps Blacklist cards, and that was all based. The only reason I had the idea of it is I pulled a Frank Thomas no-name rookie out of a vending machine at a minor league hockey arena here in Nebraska, and put $1 in when I was at a game and had some extra time, and out came a pack of 90 Topps, and the top card was a Thomas, and I flipped it over and it was a no-name, which, the odds of that are one in millions. And so that ended up being a story from our first show. Was we went through a box that I then bought the rest of the packs because I was hoping to get another one, and then put them in a box, and they sat there for 5 years. And then I brought them to Arizona, and they went through them, and they found some of these Blacklist cards, which are the other cards that were around the Frank Thomas. And that became a great segment on the show. The collector that was with us from Phoenix was speechless. He was like, I cannot believe we're pulling these out. I've never seen this many come out of a collection before. And so I would say there's some of my collecting, the Provision thing. I love that set. So when I was so excited when I found out that Terry was in Oakland, and that would be a great show. So I think some of that has dictated probably more show content than show content doing the reverse. But what I'm trying to do, and John, we talked a little bit off air about how you have guests sign a card and have an album of guests you've had. The one thing I came up with, because I was trying to think of something unique for guests on the show, and when I went to Green Bay and had AJ Dillon, I brought a pack of Mosaic from his rookie year, and I carefully opened the pack, so I just have the wrapper, and then I had him sign the outside of the pack. It has Patrick Mahomes on it, but it's from his rookie year. And so I did the same thing with Matt Strom. And so anybody that I'm running into, if they have a connection, Brad Balupchin, I'm going to have sign a 1986 Topps pack.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to collect packs, the open packs, and have people sign the outside of it. That's kind of my trail for this show. Instead of doing cards, I'm just going to have them sign packs related to whatever subject we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's cool. There's no wrong way to hobby, as I always say.
That's right.
On the show, and that's cool. And you're doing a great job with the show. Like I said, you cover all aspects. Even talking about the blacklist cards from 1990 Topps, there are a lot of people in this hobby that have been in the hobby a long time that probably saw that and never realized. I did, but I imagine there's some that probably didn't even realize that. They just thought it was the Frank and not the cards that were on that particular sheet around it that were affected. And probably people watched that and said, "Holy smokes, I didn't even know about that." And so informative as well, and that's great in its own right. Talk about for those that are listening to this episode, listen to us talking right here, that maybe haven't seen the Card Life yet. They're going to, hopefully, where they can catch it. How can someone watch the show?
So the easiest way to describe, so all of the former Fox Sports networks are now called Bally Sports. So a lot of times I have to preface that for people because they say, "Oh, I don't get Bally Sports." And then you say, "Well, did you used to watch Fox Sports?" Yes. Okay, it's Bally Sports now. It's Bally Sports Midwest, Bally Sports South, Bally Sports North. So it's on all of those Bally Sports networks. So that's about 14 networks across the country. We're also on Masson, which is kind of the Baltimore, D.C. area. We're on MSG in the New York City area. Oh, yeah. And the best thing you can do is go onto our website. It's the cardlifetv.com. And we have a full airing schedule on there so you can look and see when it's showing in your area. And then after the first broadcast date, we have to wait 30 days where they get exclusive airing of the show. But then we post it on YouTube. And I posted the first episode 30 days after the first one aired. After it aired the first time, and it's had 10,000 views, I think, in 3 weeks. So there's interest out there beyond the people that are watching it on TV. And so you'll always be able to catch episodes, even if there's little pockets of the country that aren't covered by that, but you'll be able to watch it 30 days later. And we're always putting stuff up on social media as well. That's content kind of beyond what's on the show. Everything I film, it feels like there's 8 or 9 other stories that just didn't fit in the show. Terry Smith, I think I'll be able to post stuff for a year of stories he told about the black market of Provision cards. And I mean, just some amazing stories that I can't wait for people to hear.
And the way you shoot the show, Brandon, I got to say that it's evergreen. You can watch that 4 years from now and still potentially learn something or enjoy it. And I think that's the mark of a show. I try to do even the podcast in that form. Probably I'm better at it some weeks than others, but I think that'll be the kind of show. Whenever you watch it, it's going to pique your interest, especially if you're in the hobby. And you hear a lot of people cutting the cord, not getting cable anymore or satellite TV, and it's great that you put it on YouTube where you just need an internet connection and people can watch it. Whether it's through their phone or they even cast it to their TV on a bigger screen, it'll be available to everybody in some form or fashion. So, I think that's important as well. And I appreciate hearing that you make that available to that level as well. So,
yeah, like I said, we're just so glad that it's on so much because like you said about the blacklist, there's people that are in the hobby that might not have known about that. So that's interesting to them. There were those people that sat around after a Reds game and saw that show and probably thought, I collected in 1990, went down to their basement and pulled it open and went through to see if they had anything worth value. And that's what we want to do more than anything else is get more people to do what everybody we talked to did. They loved collecting when they were children. They got away from it during their college years, their early marriage years, and then they come back and they just love it. And the more people that do that, that's what's going to make the hobby continue to do this. And dips and all that talk doesn't really matter if there's more people coming into the hobby and enjoying it and passionate about it, it's healthy for everybody, regardless of if you're investing or collecting. It's going to be good for everybody involved.
Yeah, I remember watching that segment on the 90 Tops and thinking how many people are running to their shoe boxes or monster boxes, pulling those all out and going over it with a fine-tooth comb. And like you said, and I said, there's a lot of people who never realized that. They just kind of thought it began and ended with the Frank, but the way that sheet was laid out, that affected a good portion of the cards around it too. Frank we know about because the whole name's missing, and so that's the bigger story. But the smaller one, some people don't know about, and you highlighted that. And I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people scrambled trying to find those cards, or were kicking themselves like, I got rid of all those cards. So one of the other two emotions, right?
That's right. That's right.
Euphoria or the agony of defeat. Well, Brandon, great job with the show. I'm looking forward to future episodes as they come. I'll politic one more time. Syracuse is opening the door to you anytime you wanna come down. I'll be your host if you will, and love to have you and love to see Syracuse represented maybe on a future episode somewhere down the line.
I'm picturing a behind the scenes of Sports Card Nation.
Hey,
I love it. That's a segment in itself right there.
Yeah, listen, the door is open. I'll try to make
great.
I'll try to make it as exciting as possible. But you might have to help out and work a little your magic from your years of expertise. But awesome. Thanks for making some time here on Sports Card Nation. I always give the guest, Brandon, sort of a final word. Give out any social medias that you want to share, websites, anything to promote the show or yourself or what you're doing. Go right ahead.
All right. So it's the Card Life TV is all of our social handles. So if you just do the Card Life TV on any platform, you'll be able to track us down. And I guess if I have a last moment, I'd say, John, thanks for everything you do for the hobby. I mean, you're the number of episodes and interviews and just keep people informed on what's happening with the hobby. I mean, that's part of the inspiration of me listening to that for 2 years and hearing all those stories that you've had. That's part of the seeds for this show. So thank you for what you do for the hobby and just keep up the great work.
Well, I appreciate coming from you and I really appreciate that. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, John.
All right, that's a wrap on episode 140. Want to thank you out there who listen and or download the program. Appreciate it. Also want to thank my guest, Brandon Verzal, for joining the program. A great show there, the Card Life, kind of one-man band with behind the scenes, making sure that program gets out there for the hobbyists to see. Also want to say thank you to our guest new release calendar announcer today, Dan McCary. Did a great job with that. If you're interested in doing that guest spot, announcing what's coming out this week, get a hold of me, contact me, private message, email, and we can get you on the show. Love to have you. So we're going to keep the closing short and sweet. If you're listening to this on Friday, show release date tomorrow morning, Hobby Hotline, 11 a.m. I'll be on the show this week. Hope to see you there. So with that being said, remember, the hobby's the people, and we'll see you next week.
That's a wrap on another edition of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Thank you to all the awesome listeners out there. Without you, there is no us. Thank you to all our great guests who drive this show, and also our wonderful sponsors who help us produce the great hobby content every week. Remember, another Hobby Quick Hits episode drops every Monday, and Sports Card Nation returns again next Friday. If you like the shows, we appreciate those positive reviews. Be well, and always remember, the hobby is the people.